Yeah, like what Anne-Marie said, I'm like 11 years in recovery. I get nervous still when I do these, so my voice will go up and down, but it'll level out in a bit. I think I get more nervous probably because I'm up here, and then the second part of it is because I feel like I'm standing in a dock. So it's very difficult for me standing in a dock, to be honest. And you know, my background was, I come from a really good family, you know. I had everything I needed. I think like what Mark said, we didn't have a lot, but we had enough. You know, I got the clothes, and you know, I had clothes, and I had food, and I had love. But you know, my parents went to work at 5 o'clock in the morning and come home from work at 7 o'clock at night. So from a very young age, I learnt to live on my own. I learnt to cook. I learnt to get myself up for school. I learnt to come home from school and my dinner was already on the side and I just put it in the microwave. So my parents did the best they could, but for me, I had no role models. So after a period of time, I sort of realised I didn't really have to go to school because nobody knew, you know. And when I was at school, it was, you just used to take a note in if you wasn't in. And obviously my parents never went to open evenings because they worked, so my best mate used to write my note. Do you know what I mean? So Matt won't be in tomorrow, he's got a dentist appointment. So I learnt from a very young age that I could graft, and I didn't do anything in school. School I didn't understand it. I learnt basics and then I thought that was enough. You know, I didn't enjoy most of the lessons. I enjoyed PE, and I enjoyed just running around the streets causing chaos, really. Do you know what I mean? And getting my own money. I learnt to get my own money the way we did. I lived on the biggest council estate in London, and I know what people say about council estates, but all the back doors was open. I could go and have dinner in anyone's house. We never used to steal out of each other's houses, you know, and I just carried on like that. And at school, all the teachers used to say when I used to get them end of year reports was, he's a likeable rogue. You know, he's a bit like the Artful Dodger. You know, we know he's up to no good, but we like him. But nobody thought, well, you know, where's he going to end up? I remember so I kept not going to school, so in the end I got on one of them attendance things. You know, every lesson you go to, you have to get it signed so that they make sure you're going from one to the other. And the teacher put, Matthew is very immature. And I remember going home, and my dad was quite strict. And I ran in the door and I said, Dad, wait till you read my report, you're not going to believe this. Because I thought immature was something good. And he went, well, I've been really good at school, Dad. I said, when you read this, you're going to be so proud of me. And he read it and said, Matthew's very immature. And he was just like, that's not good. But I didn't understand. I didn't understand any of the concepts. And my life went from the usual drinking, cannabis. It was the rave scene then, so everybody was happy, hugging, taking loads of E's, taking loads of trips. It was all fun. And then I was getting in trouble quite a bit with the police. I was stealing cars, and I was getting up to no good, and my drug using was getting a little bit out of... No, it was fucking well out of control, to be honest. And my parents had this really good idea that I had family in Spain. So they said, we'll send him to live with a family in Tenerife to sort his head out. Well, obviously, it's not the greatest place to sort your head out. So I spent 7 years in Tenerife. I don't remember any of it. I remember getting off the plane. I don't remember anything else. And when I was over there, I got into cocaine, I got into crack. Heroin was just starting to come in over there, but it was a bit of a... Everyone took it, but nobody told anyone, because it was that time when if you was an heroin addict and you walked down the street, you got a slap. So nobody really discussed it. I ended up getting deported from Spain, and I was already wanted in England, so I got arrested at the airport. Got put in prison, And I remember being in Wandsworth, and I was only 20, and it should have been 21 to go into Wandsworth, but because it was late at night and it was the nearest one, they just said, he'll be all right in there for a night. And I got into the reception, and the officer said to me, do you take drugs? And I was disgusted with him saying that to me. Do you know what I mean? I went, what do you mean? I said, everyone does, don't they? And he was like, no, do you take heroin? And I was like, no. And he went, have you got any sharps? And I thought, what's he talking about? I didn't understand what he meant, and I was like, no. And another kid that I was with in the police station, he said, yeah, I take heroin. Yeah, and we went through the door. He went that way, I went that way. And obviously he went to a detox wing and got his methadone and all that, and I went to the normal wing, rattling and trying to pretend that I wasn't, because I didn't want everyone to know I was an heroin addict. And I ended up getting out, and I went back home, and my life just was in and out of prison, and I was one of them users that I never took methadone. I never went to a drug agency for the simple reason that I took drugs because I enjoyed them. If someone said to me, why don't you go to a drug service and get methadone? I'd be like, well, why do I want that? I won't enjoy that. I'd enjoyed the getting heroin, the grafting. I was speaking to someone last night. The actual taking the heroin was only a small part of what I enjoyed. I enjoyed the stealing, the meeting people, the selling the stuff, the selling the cheese. I don't know why they say cheese, because you don't get no money for cheese. Bacon, but I don't never nick cheese. Bacon, quite a bit, and McFrees and all that stuff. When I was in, I tell you one thing, I went into Sainsbury's and I filled up a trolley with lamb chops, right? And I pushed it out like you do, like a trolley run. And you put a car mat over it and you think they're not going to see it. That's how stupid we are. And you walk out all proud, but because you've put a car mat over it or 32 pack of crisps, you think they're not going to realise this. And I got arrested for this trolley full of pork chops. And I went into Belmarsh and they knew me, and it took me 3 days before I clocked on that every officer that opened my door was going, chop chop, come on, chop chop, man. And I couldn't work it out, and then I went to have a visit, and he went, come on, chop chop, you'll be late. And I was thinking, fucking chop chop, and then I realised it was. So every time I went in Belmarsh, I got the fucking chop chop joke, and it was a bit. And then, so when I was using, I didn't understand. I didn't know anything about recovery. It wasn't really about, but then again, I wasn't in the places where it would have been anyway. It was a bit of a myth. I used to be in prison and they'd say, so-and-so's got clean. And I'd go, where is he then? So-and-so's got clean, he's moved down to Bournemouth. And I said, but nobody's never seen him. So I didn't believe it. And my prison sentences were getting worse. I was getting a bit more chaotic, and I was doing things that was getting quite violent and putting people in bad situations. And then I ended up getting arrested, and I got sent to rehab. And I was in rehab, and I remember sitting in there looking around the room and thinking, bless them, they'll need it, these people in here, bless them. Like, do you need any group time? I'd be like, no, they need it, I'm all right, mate. And I obviously left the rehab and just went straight back on it. I ended up getting on a train from the rehab, going to London, committing a crime, and was back in the rehab back in prison before I could even think about it. And then I did my little bit where I did what we all do, where we write a nice letter to the judge, telling him how sorry we are and I need a chance. And I found God, and I had all my Bible when I went to court and all that. And I asked him to send me to rehab again. And he said, I'm going to grant your wish, I'm going to send you to rehab. And I was like, yes. And he went, when you finish your 3-year sentence. It's like, I ended up going to rehab. And when I went in the second time, I saw people that was in there the first time in my peer group that was 3 years clean now. And I thought, right, now I can fucking see it does work. Do you know what I mean? It does work. And I'm not saying I went in that rehab and had a fucking flash of lightning and got it, because people in this room was working there when I was in there, and it was fucking hard work. I was actually discharged every day. So every day I had to sit down with the head counsellor and tell him why he had to keep me. Every day. So I didn't have a chance of being naughty. He said, you are discharged, but every morning between 9:30 and between 9 and 9:30, you've got to tell me why I'm going to keep you in here. And I had to sit there every day thinking, what am I going to fucking say today? And I ended up getting out of there and getting involved in the recovery community and doing what I wanted to do. And people said to me, you won't be able, you know, because of your record and things like that, you won't be able to go and help kids in schools. And I went for a few jobs and they knocked me back because of my CRB. And I thought, well, I'll just set up my own company then and I'll CRB myself. What can I do? And I set up my own company and I started doing talks in schools. Then I did some talks in prisons, and then I got some awards. And remember, I couldn't read and write either, so I had to learn to read and write when I was in prison. So I couldn't read and write very well, so I had to learn to read and write. So I had somebody doing my emails for me when I wanted to go into school. So I send them to someone, they jazz them up. People still jazz them up now, actually, but they jazzed them up. And then I started working in school, doing stuff in schools, and I did some stuff in prisons. Then I got some awards, and then I was in London, and I met the then prison minister then, Crispin Blunt, was it? Crispin Blunt, yeah. And he gave me this award, and he said, what job would you want? And I said, I want to work in a prison. And he went, well, why can't you? I said, because they won't let me in there because of my conviction. And he went, leave it with me. And then 3 weeks later, I got a phone call from the local prison to go in, and they offered me a job in the prison. So I got a job, and then they didn't know how to clear me for keys, because it was like, how do we get, he's a prisoner, we can't give him keys. Yeah, but he needs keys. Like, so there was this big process about giving me keys. I ended up getting keys, so I had keys. I was walking around the prison, and prisoners were saying to me, here, Gov, open the door. And I was saying, please don't call me Gov. I haven't dealt with that yet. Do you know what I mean? And I worked in the prison for quite a long time, and then in that I got started. So it's about, so the story's about hope. So some of the stuff they said I couldn't achieve. So they said I'd never work in a prison, and I did. And then I ended up doing stuff in London, sitting on a drug committee with Lords, and then I sat on the new drug strategy board. Me and Mark was down there. They spent more time on obesity, to be honest. And then I do some advisory work for the prison service around rehabilitation. And then one of the new things that I never thought I'd do at the moment I'm doing some stuff in Broadmoor. So Broadmoor rung me and said, we've got your name off somebody in London, will you come in and do some stuff in here about building some form of recovery community in Broadmoor? And so I'm doing that at the moment. So it's all the stuff they said you can't achieve. Do you know what I mean? You know, I have a brother who's, when I got clean, my brother went and he's a prison officer now. So I'm 11 years in recovery. My brother's been a prison officer for 11 years. So he's got a really good message to other people. And it's just like, I was one of them people, so this is the thing. When I was using, if someone said to me, don't nick nothing out of that shop because so-and-so's on, you know, the security guard that's a bit tricky, you don't mind the one that's a bit lazy, I'd go in and nick it. So if it's got on the wall, don't touch the wall, wet paint, I'll be the one that touches the wet paint, yeah? So don't walk on the grass, I'll run across the grass. And when I was in school and the teacher said everyone be quiet, I'd be the one that would just be laughing, you know, going, and so when I got clean, it was like people said, you can't do that, you can't do that. And I said, yeah, I can, I want to do what I want, I'm going to do it. And that's all I've done. And it's like, I've never actually ever reached, I don't know where I want to go, I just keep plodding on, do you know what I mean, and doing different things. And I've had loads of really good times in recovery, you know, I've got a family, I've got a son, I've got a daughter, you know, all things that I didn't think I'd ever get, do you know what I mean? My mum passed away when I was using, and I never dealt with that, and now I've dealt with that. You know, my dad's really ill at the moment, he's got dementia, so I have to deal with that. Do you know what I mean? And I go down and I see him, and he doesn't really know who I am, but he knows that someone's there to take him out for the day, and he has a really good day. Sometimes he actually does tell me about his son, which is quite interesting, because it's not what he says when he sees me, but do you know what I mean? So it's stuff like that, and it's 2 minutes. For me, recovery's about everyone. Like, people think it's just the person that's in it, but there's lots of people that are not in recovery that do so much work for people in recovery. Their families, workers, you know, lots of people that don't get what we get. Do you know what I mean? They said, oh, Matt's done really well, but what about my brother and my dad? And that they've got nowhere to go when their son's killing themselves. Do you know what I mean? And they've always been there for me. They've never let me down, do you know what I mean? And to be asked to talk here and to be part of the committee is really good. And some of the new people that you're going to hear talk, they make me carry on doing what I'm doing, because it's them that the reason why I stay in here. I could easily go away now and probably wouldn't last long, but you know, it's just good to be here, and I hope everyone has a good day. Thanks. Thank you.